Okay, so I receive a lot of comments. First off, let me just make this very clear. If the first thing you say is, I'm new here, but you're not new. I blocked you and you made a new account and you want me to believe you're a new person who just randomly hates me. When really you've been terrorizing me for over a year. You're not new. None of this is new. And people say, well, why don't you get help? Get off the internet and get fucking help, you stupid bitch. I had help. And I can prove that by going back and unblocking some of my old videos. When I arrived here in 2017, the day after I arrived, I started receiving help. I left Florida on foot, and some friends online got me to California. Once I got up through Savannah, Georgia, they put me on a Greyhound bus, and we made a deal. They said they would get me the bus ticket and help me get settled in here if I would get help. So that's what I did. The next morning after arriving here in early March, I believe it was just after my birthday, I started going to Gateway's mental health. That day, I received a doctor. I received a therapist. I was written prescriptions. I was medicated. Day one. And I stayed medicated until earlier this year. 2017, 2018, 2019. I lived in parks. I lived on the sidewalk. I lived in tents. I took my medication. I went to therapy. 2019, near the end of 2019, I was given a truck to live in. I loved my truck. I lived in a truck during the first year of the pandemic. Still saw my doctors. Still saw my therapist. Now, I threatened to stop receiving help when the pandemic began, because when I went in for my first therapist appointment after the beginning of the pandemic, they told me I couldn't take a shower. Every week for the 4 years I had been homeless, I had been allowed to get a shower there. And it was suddenly being denied. And they were saying that it was for sanitary reasons. It's to keep everybody safe. And it pissed me off, because stopping the homeless from being able to shower is not keeping the homeless sanitary or safe. It's actually making a situation much, much more dangerous, because the most unsanitary people in town are now being even more limited to cleanliness during a pandemic. I got past that, a year of not showering, but I continued taking my medication, and I continued seeking therapy. And so I'll get a lot, well, it didn't work. So you're just a fucking failure, aren't you? You lied to the people that got you to California when you told them you would get better. I never told anybody I would get better. I promised that I would get help. And I did. You can't promise that you're going to magically get better from a mental illness, from emotional neglect that is buried deep. My friend that gave me the truck had a friend who believed that PTSD could be cured by God if I just prayed hard enough. And it made me feel like God must not love me because I pray all the time. But it's not that God doesn't love me, it's that God doesn't exist. People pray and then something happens and they say, oh, God did that. But it was possible it was going to happen anyway. See, God's not going to cure my mental health issues. Therapist might be able to help. So back to why I'm no longer in therapy. 2021, last year, I received my Section 8. A couple of days later, some channels here on YouTube began using my videos, editing them and lying about me. So I was no longer being seen as a mentally unwell abuse victim. I was being seen as a liar and a manipulator who just didn't want to work. And that's the viewpoint that has remained ever since those channels took over. I have 1,000 subscribers now that I didn't have then. When I was living in the truck, I had 350 people who believed me and cared about me. Now I have 1,000 people who they don't believe a word I say. They hate me and they want to see me hurt and suffer. And so last year, it all boiled over. A woman named Bernice Morgan in Australia. She watches Daywave and Adonis Paul, and it made her angry that I was on their channel. She didn't like me. And instead of not watching their channel, because they wouldn't stop using my videos, she decided she had to get rid of me. Through threats, through intimidation, through anything possible. She had to get me off YouTube so that she would never have to see me again if the people she liked wanted to make fun of me. Not understanding that that's not how things work at all. She bombarded me with emails. Harassing, threatening emails day after day after day after day. Sending 5 or 10 at a time. I started having breakdowns. And during one of those breakdowns, the name of my therapist was released. And also her phone number. Because they were denying my mental diagnoses. And I was trying to talk to my therapist on the phone and have her confirm that I was diagnosed with something, but all it took was her phone number. And so then hundreds of people began mass harassing my therapist. And they said, well, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. You're the reason we know the number. I'm not the reason you're choosing to harass a social worker. You can get a phone number from any place. It doesn't give you reason or right to harass somebody. Like, for say, when I called the police because of the harassing phone calls and the address, they had my address and they were threatening to send men to rape me. And the police told me that it was not a valid threat because you can get an address or a phone number from anywhere. Those are not private. Anybody can look up an address or a phone number, so there's no valid threat if you have somebody's phone number. It's not a crime. So they took her phone number and they mass harassed her until she had to change her phone number, which is a strong inconvenience for somebody whose patients have their number and need to be able to get in contact with them. When they weren't able to get rid of me that way, they began writing letters, emails to the Board of Health. They were writing to my therapist and to the director of Gateway saying that if they didn't put me in a mental hospital, there would be severe consequences. I know this because the director came to me one day during a therapy session with a printout of one of these letters to show me the kind of harassment they were receiving in an attempt to have me put in a mental hospital. They refused to lock me up because it would not help me. I made it very clear that it would not help me. I have never been able to receive help locked in a hospital because the second they lock that door, the only thing I can focus on is getting the fuck out that door. You can't help somebody if the only thing they're focusing on is escaping. I was receiving help on my own. After that didn't work, Bernice contacted the board to try to have her license taken away. She made a video proving that she did this. Before y'all say, that didn't happen, you're lying! That happened. That happened. She made a video proving it. She reported my therapist to have her license taken away. And people say, well, it didn't work, so why does it matter? It matters because they tried. Whether it worked or not, it was an attempt to destroy the life of a woman who was doing absolutely nothing but trying to help the poor and the mentally unwell on the streets of California. And you tried to stop her, not just from helping me, but from helping everybody possible for her to help. You, Bernice Morgan, decided that a therapist no longer was going to be working here in Los Angeles helping people because you didn't agree with the care plan they chose for somebody you didn't like and you wanted to see suffer. And then Bernice will come and say, well, I'm a therapist. I'm almost a therapist. I mean, I studied and I know everything. I know everything. So how dare you question me? After my therapist was reported, she left. And I was offered a new therapist. And I became afraid that my new therapist would receive the exact same harassment that my old therapist received. And I didn't want to live with that. I had lived with the harassment myself for over a year, and I knew that it takes a toll. I knew how much it was beating me down. And I couldn't live thinking that another human being was suffering that same type of treatment just because they wanted to help me. So I didn't get another therapist. And then one day I went to pick up my medication at the pharmacy, and the pharmacist told me that my insurance was off, that it wasn't going through. And I assumed and panicked and freaked out, thinking that my insurance was cut off because I hadn't been going to therapy, and so I lost my insurance. It turned out that was not the case. My insurance is on. The CVS pharmacy was wrong, but now 3 months off of my medication, I'm scared to go back to my doctor because if I go back, they're going to want me to start seeing therapy again. I'm supposed to be in these programs that I've been made afraid to be in for fear of the safety of my social workers. Not that I'm going to hurt them, but that some woman in Australia is going to do whatever she can to destroy their lives, while simultaneously trying to destroy my life. And I don't have a life to destroy because I have nothing. I have nothing and I want nothing, which is why they have to hurt people trying to help me. So when y'all come at me and you say, why don't you just get help? Why don't you ask yourself why you wouldn't allow me to have the help that I had? Why don't you ask yourself why you didn't step in and say something when these men were doing what they were doing? Taking away my dignity, taking away my truth, making me out to be a liar. You all seem very well aware that I have mental health issues now, and you say get help, but when I had help, you did everything you could to take it away, to disprove that I needed it. It's almost like you're telling me to get it now, so that we can keep going around in a loop. I get help again and you take it away, and I get help again and you take it away, and I get help again and you take it away. And you'll say, well, you could get off the line. Well, the internet could also stop trying to destroy the life of an abuse victim who has done nothing. You could literally just walk away and allow me to live my life, to make my stupid little videos, to get help, to cry, to laugh. But if I laugh, you come and say, oh, she's strong, we'll have to hurt her. Look, she's acting strong. Look, she's acting smart. Look, she's not in tears and suicidal. We better do something. And saying it's the internet doesn't change the fact that these are real people. I hate that argument. I hate the argument, though. It's the internet. What do you expect? I expect human beings to treat other human beings like human beings. That's what I expect. The internet is not run by soulless bots. All of these comments threatening me, all of the messages I've received, the phone calls, these are real people who were making the choice to commit those actions against another real person. And you can hide behind your computer and say, I'm just a soulless robot, all you want. You're not new here and you're not a robot.